whose lands we live, work, and play. We have an agenda. Would somebody like to move adoption? So, any additions or deletions? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. We have the March 13th regular council minutes. Would somebody like to? Actually, you know what? We've got more. That's just on this sheet. We've got all the we've got the committee of the whole and the special meeting. Would somebody like to move we adopt all three? Councillor Ballmer, Councillor Frankel.
I'd like to actually.
That's the next question. Any errors or omissions?
Yeah. 13th. It's just a date change I'd like in there. Mentions that getting access to the pilots area is the year of 2023 that happened in 20.
Okay, M 5.1.
Yeah.
Anything else? Okay, all in favor of adopting as corrected? Carried. We have no bylaws. Delegations, Van Hoof Public Library, Jen. Okay, you didn't want to talk through it? Has everybody seen the slide deck? So it's probably easier than looking through in here, right? Is what I'm thinking. We've all seen it.
Good evening. My name is Janet Smith. I'm chairperson of the Vanderhoof District Library Board. Your worship, councillors, staff of Vanderhoof, District of Vanderhoof. We are asking today that as you shape our 2023 budget, you consider how much the public library means to the people of Vanderhoof. In 2022, according to the library's annual survey input form, approximately 31,000 people came through the library. 40,000 plus items were loaned to our patrons. 2,200 items were sent to other libraries through the book loaning system. The library currently houses almost 22,000 physical items that are available to loan. Items that do not show recent checkouts are replaced with something new. Our collection is always staying current and fresh. In 2022, we held 331 programs throughout the year with nearly 2,000 people in attendance. We were one of the first libraries, if not the first library when COVID hit, that we had curbside services. People could still phone the library. We still lent books out. It was almost business as per usual without people actually in the library. Many patrons have stated that the library gives good value for the taxpayer dollars spent. Our library is so much more than just books on the shelves. Libraries are a gateway to early literacy, social programs, and continues to be one of the key community hubs of Vanderhoof. The library was used as a safe cooling location during the last 2 summer heat waves. With our new filtered air system, it is just absolutely lovely. A new immigrant to our community stated that she finally feels a part of the community thanks to the library. That made us feel very, very good. We ask that you consider this as you examine the hard budget decisions before you. We understand that you want to ensure that taxpayer dollars are spent in the most efficient and appropriate ways possible, which is absolutely commendable. However, without proper funding and rising costs, the library is not able to run at its optimal and will fall short in its services to our community. Wages and benefits alone cost the library just under $180,000 last year. I believe we are only asking for $188,000. So that it takes care of a few other things that we would like to do. One thing we would like to address is, as far as our reserve fund, we would request that you reinstate our 1-year reserve fund that we have had for many years. This is now only a 6-month reserve fund. After time and consideration, we feel that the 1-year reserve is best for the library. We were advised by Denise McGeechee, who works in government as a consultant for BC Libraries, and this was what she had to say, quote, "Indeed, best practices is to have an operating reserve in place. A year would be ideal, but sometimes realistically, 6 months is what we could, that a 1-year operating reserve would be in place. The library would strongly like to see the reinstatement of the 1-year reserve, and for one basic reason that I'm just going to say tonight. As our grants come in later in the year, if we only have a 6-month reserve, and if the District of Vanderhoof, for some unforeseen reason, couldn't give us funding, we would actually have to close the library. Where if we had the 1 year, we could sort of get through until hopefully everything was back on even keel. So with that, I thank you very much for your support and consideration.
Awesome. Thank you, Jan. Does anybody have any questions? Brian?
Jan, the 12-month, is that you want to go back to it, or is it just a one-time or fix it at 12 months?
We would like it fixed at
Okay,
12 months.
thanks.
Because other than last year, we've always had the 1 year.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? I think you pressed it too many times. It should be coming on. You did press it. I don't know why it's not coming on. I'll try it again. Press it again. Go there. Brian, could you pass her your mic? Thank you.
Well, I don't know. Janet, were there any programs that you were not able to run? Because last year you had to go into the reserves, right? The budget was, what your ask was not what you received. And so you had to go into the reserves. Am I right?
We did. I'm going to ask Jen to come up. to
Yeah.
answer that.
And so Jen, were there any programs that you were not able to run or anything that you were not able to do because you didn't have any money or the funding for it?
Okay, well, actually, because we have the reserves, we were not stopped from running programs because of the cuts. We just used our reserve to do anything extra that we needed to.
Okay,
And we didn't do as many programs as we are going to in the future because we're just coming back from COVID as
Yeah.
everybody else is. So we foresee more programs, more events being held at the library going forward now.
I have another question. Since I have the mic. So the other question I had is, and this is a question I've had for a few years, because we also fund, I believe, programs at the Y, like
Yeah.
and so I would just like to make sure that what's happening at the library is not conflicting with what's going on at the Y, or is there some kind of synchronization between the library programs and the Y programs? I just want to be efficient with what
That's a
we're
good
spending.
question. We have tried to collaborate with the Y to make sure we're not running the same programs or at the same times, but we haven't been able to make proper connection with them. And so I feel that we kind of have a program and they duplicate it oftentimes. So I'm not sure what's going on there.
Okay,
But we really have reached out to them over and over to see if we can't collaborate together, because I think together we could be even a more powerful force in the community, something better, right? And so that is our goal. We just need to make proper contact yet.
okay, those were my questions. Thank you.
Great. Anybody else? Thank you, Jen and Jen.
Thank you very much.
Okay, 5.2, active transportation. Ashley and Megan.
Ready to go? Okay, great. Thank you. Good evening, your worship, members of council. Just for an introduction again, my name's Ashley Thandy, and this is my colleague Megan Hickey, and we're community planners from L&M Engineering. On the call this evening via Zoom or Teams, we have our traffic engineer, Mr. Tanner Fellstrom, joining us from the Prince George office. He was a big floating head in the background there for a little bit. So we can go to the next. Thanks, Aline. Perfect. So we're really excited to be here tonight because we finalized the active transportation plan. And now we get to present the final highlights of the final plan to you. And then it can move on with council resolution and the district can wrap up the funding side of things for their program. So today we're going to discuss the following points. So we'll do a quick introduction and an overview of the active transportation plan. It's a really comprehensive and quite a large document. And we want to be very respectful of your time this evening. So we're just going to go over the highlights of the plan and then leave some room at the end for questions and comments if there is any. Not a full 140 pages. I'd love to, but we'd be here really late. We'd have to sleep in Vanderhoof tonight. So just comprehensively, we'll go over the existing network, the active transportation network, the new strategies and recommendations that came through the plan. The proposed network will focus on the pedestrian and cycling / rolling network, proposed facilities that came through the plan to accompany the proposed network, and then priority projects that came through the consultation. We thought it was worth mentioning because we were curious to see what the general public kind of listed and prioritized as projects. We didn't necessarily prioritize them in the plan itself, but we just wanted to present what those findings were from the consultation. And then we'll move on to the implementation of the plan. So it's quite a large implementation matrix in the plan itself. So we just kind of broke down the matrix a little bit just to kind of explain a little bit of our thinking behind the way that we laid it out and why we did what we did. And then we'll talk a little bit about the funding and grant opportunities that we recommended within the plan. We recommended it through a local, provincial, and federal level. There's a lot of different avenues for active transportation just outside of the normal active transportation grant funding. So we thought it was important just to incorporate those for future consideration. And then we'll wrap it up and have questions at the end if there are any. Great, so overview of the planning process. So we launched on September 2022. We came to Vanderhoof and did our ATP, so active transportation plan inventory. And then thanks. It's not coming up? Oh no, it's okay, we've got a copy here. This was the cool slide, it was all coming up. Yes, thank you. Okay, so the next bubble would say October, November 2022, and that's when we launched the first round of public consultation. We launched it for about a month just to give adequate time for residents to respond to the online survey and participate in the open house that we had. And then during this time, we also came to council just to do a quick introduction to the plan and an overview of what that consultation looked like up until the point. Then in December 2022, we started to create the draft plan, which was phase 3 of the project. We worked on that over the month of December, and then in January, February 2023, we refined the plan a little bit and then took it for a second round of public consultation to take it back to residents and council for review and comment, and then refined it again afterwards. And now we're here in March 2023 for adoption of the final plan and then future implementation. Is it gonna? Oh, it's not, okay. Tanner? Do you mind? Okay, Tanner, do you mind? No pressure, but pressure.
Sharing my screen.
Can you go, yeah, can you log into our work folder? So 166632.
Yeah, I have the slideshow open on my computer
Oh.
as well.
Amazing, Tanner. Do you mind sharing your screen?
No.
Okay,
One sec, let me-
we're just a little frozen on our end here.
Okay.
This is very fancy. Okay, there's all the bubbles. I don't, okay, so Tanner, do you mind, yeah, just starting the slideshow from here?
Okay.
And then I'll just kind of ask you to click through, as we go through it, if that's okay.
Sure, you guys,
We can see that, you just gotta press the little thing on the bottom there.
it's bringing it up on another monitor here, 1 sec.
Oh, okay, we can see it though.
Yeah, you're still seeing the one that's not. Okay, I'm just gonna stop sharing and then share my other.
Tanner has 3 computer screens, so he's
Yes.
gonna click through them.
1 moment.
Okay. Thanks for your patience, everybody. Too fancy. Okay,
Is this
Yep, we're
working?
good.
Okay.
yeah, it's working. So if you want to click through this one and then just go through that whole entire slide.
Okay.
See? Fancy. Okay, perfect. Thanks, Tanner. And then do
Yeah,
you
no-
mind clicking one more time, Tanner?
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, so for the public consultation, so we did 2 community-wide mailouts. The first little picture there is the first mailout that we did. And then the second one is the second mailout for the online survey. Both of them had QR codes for the online survey. We had hoped to do a virtual information session during the second round of public consultation, just to provide residents with an overview in our words about the plan to prepare them to do the online survey. Unfortunately, we only ended up having 3 people RSVP, so we had to cancel the virtual information session, which was okay because we still had a okay response to this survey. So do you mind going again, Tanner? Perfect. Oh, okay. That's okay. So the 2 online surveys, they were online, but we did have copies available at the district, hard copies, for any residents that were not able to access the internet. So in the first round of the consultation survey, we received 84 responses, which we thought was pretty great. Round 2 consultation, we only received 43 responses. We had anticipated a lower response rate only because for the round 2 consultation, residents had to read the entire plan and then proceed to doing not a lengthy survey, but it was about 12 minutes long. So we didn't anticipate a super high response, but we were happy with 43. We also incentivized for the second survey, knowing that it might take a little bit more to get residents to participate with a contest online. So if they chose to, they could leave their name and email, and then we would draw for a chamber gift card. So we did draw, and then we'll be contacting the winner after this presentation. So the deliverables from the public consultation were the 2 what we heard reports. Both have been attached as appendices in the plan itself. Okay, Tanner, thanks. And then we did do one in person that we presented to you all in November. We did one public open house at the Vanderhoof Cultural Center. And we had 14, we thought we had 13, but it was 14 community members in attendance. And then just some pictures from the event. And then we also were able to share project information on the district's website and Facebook page as well through district staff. So after we did the consultation, the first round, it helped us come up with key objectives and then the following guidelines that we'll be talking about in the next slide. So the first objective was to provide strategies and realistic recommendations so that the district can work towards making an active transportation the preferred method of getting around in Vanderhoof on a daily basis. And we wanted to make sure we highlighted that realistic recommendations because its infrastructure is very expensive, as you know, and as you can see through the implementation matrix. So we wanted to make sure that whatever is in the plan is achievable and it's realistic, it's viable and feasible for the district. And we wanted to ensure that while we did a connected plan, it had to be something that could work for you short, medium, and long term. So the next objective was to increase connections between neighborhoods, key destinations, and disconnected areas of the district, again, within reason, taking into consideration if there was enough room for infrastructure expansion projects, if it was along the highway, what would actually be viable, and what wouldn't be. And Megan will talk a little bit about that in the next few slides. And then another objective was to just develop an active transportation network that's comfortable, convenient, safe, and accessible for people of all ages and abilities, taking into consideration that we are a winter city. So I know a lot of the photos that we have in there, there's a few that show snow, but some of them we had to show without snow because it's a lot of painted lines and things like that. But we do talk about taking into the winter city into consideration throughout the plan. And then the final key objective was to formalize the existing information on walking and cycling networks by providing more signage and information for residents, which we've highlighted a bit more throughout the plan.
Okay, so on to the guiding principles. These were developed from the key objectives and with the intention of providing a direction for the plan and active transportation in Vanderhoof. So the following guiding principles are intended to support the district and achieve an overall goal of a clear, connected, and safe active transportation network in the district. So just to go over them just quickly here. So clear.
Sorry, Tanner, can you just? Thanks.
So in order for active transportation in the district to become a more attractive and convenient way of getting around, the network will need to be as clear as possible. So like Ashley mentioned, signage and wayfinding is really important. So the goal of the clear guiding principle is to ensure that all residents and visitors have a safe, comfortable, and enjoyable experience when using active transportation facilities in the district. So the connected guiding principle is important because a well-connected network of active transportation facilities can improve the convenience of moving around. And convenience is really important because if it's not convenient, people aren't going to choose that way to move around. So connectivity will aid in increased recreation opportunities and making traveling by active transportation a more practical way of getting around. And then our last guiding principle of safe prioritizes allowing existing and future connections in the district to be safe and comfortable between the user's key destinations. And for this guiding principle, input from public consultation highlighted the importance of implementing more designated active transportation infrastructure, like specific to active transportation, and improving safety for users. Next slide. So we'll just go through some of the strategies for the clear guiding principle. So the first strategy of enhancing the clarity of the pedestrian and cycling networks. Again, wayfinding and signage is important. To note, though, the district does have really great wayfinding and signage already, but there's definitely room for a little bit more that is active transportation specific. So that was one of the recommendations, and then just being more universal so that people who are impaired can use active transportation facilities like tactile surfaces and tactile signage that has braille on it so that everyone is included. And then lighting was another recommendation as part of this strategy. And the next strategy was to provide end of trip facilities and develop more opportunities related to tourism. So again, updating existing maps and brochures with any kind of cycling loops, walking loops that are more up to date. That we kind of collected some of those through our public consultation that might not be identified to people who are visiting and don't know about those kind of loops that more locals might just know about. And then installing amenities such as benches and bike parking, bike racks was another recommendation as part of this strategy. And then something that we were also recommending is installing a central pedestrian kiosk that's kind of like a bigger sign with a bigger map. Maybe there's brochures kind of there for people to take so that it's central to all active transportation facilities. Yeah. And the next strategy to ensure bylaw and land use documents support active transportation. So this one's pretty straightforward, just ensuring that all current and future bylaws and land use documents have active transportation related recommendations.
Yeah, and just a quick note is that the official community plan does provide direction for a transportation master plan and active transportation planning as well. So, and I know that's part of the council strategic priority moving forward as well. So just taking those into consideration. Okay, Tanner, we're good. The next slide.
So with the connected guiding principle, our first strategy is to expand the pedestrian network. So through our study, we identified there are gaps in the pedestrian network, and the recommendations to close these gaps where possible. We're considering the facilities for all ages and abilities, like Ashley had mentioned, and that's called like AAA or AAA as a acronym. Considering shared facilities, so the district does have currently some shared walking and biking lanes in the district. So one kind of like obstacle that we had encountered was that there's not a lot of room on a lot of the road dedications, or where there's current open ditch. It'll be difficult to put a brand new sidewalk, curb, gutter, and full dedicated bike lane in. So considering those shared facilities where possible, will help make those connections a little bit better. And then another recommendation was to work with the Ministry of Transportation in regard to Highway 16. So any kind of improvements that can be made along, there's a certain stretch along Highway 16 we've identified in the proposed network map that we'll show. And then the second strategy for this principle of expanding the cycling network. So again, there are gaps in the cycling network where it exists. There's actually not much of a cycling network that's specific to cycling in the district right now. So we really wanted to expand on that where we could. So some of the recommendations were, again, the all ages and ability facilities, formalizing the existing loops with signage, like I mentioned, so that those visiting also know about them, or maybe who are new to town know about any existing loops. And in kind of conjunction with that, if loops or trails kind of go outside of the district's boundary, to partner with the regional district in formalizing those loops and trails and routes that might be existing. And the next guiding principle of SAFE, the first strategy of maintain and repair the active transportation network. Some of the recommendations for this strategy included designing facilities for all types of weather. As Ashley mentioned, it's a winter city here, so it's just the reality of living in a town where there's snow. Reviewing the maintenance policy and allowing year-round use. Again, that kind of goes hand in hand. And then also along with that, we recommended ensuring that there's proper equipment, funding, and staff resources to maintain and repair any existing active transportation network facilities or future. That's really important to consider before implementing new facilities. The next strategy of sidewalk upgrades. So currently, so the district has a lot of offset asphalt sidewalks. They're kind of just small paved pathways that are offset from the road. From what we understand, the district has a hard time maintaining those because they're not the same width as a sidewalk. So to plow them, it just doesn't really work. So to be able to upgrade all of those offset asphalt sidewalks to proper concrete sidewalks would be really huge for the district, and again for the safety of the users, making sure that all ages and abilities are able to use them all year round. The third strategy here is education. So education, we recommended partnering with schools, local schools, School District 91, to implement some sort of programming. There's one called Safe Routes to Schools, just educating the students and coming up with a plan on look, here are the routes that you can use to get to school that are safe. There's proper active transportation facilities, sidewalks, bike lanes that you can use to get to school from your destination, probably your house. And then organizing community-wide events to promote active transportation was another recommendation within this strategy, just to promote it and show that the district's active transportation network is pretty great. And actually, there's a very connected network already. So just promoting that as the district improves on that network too is important. The last strategy with this guiding principle is improving crossings and intersections. So I think we all know that the crossing on the highway just down here is pretty dangerous. So working with the ministry along that Highway 16 crossing to improve that will be helpful with the safe guiding principle. And then also another recommendation was to just monitor collision data with ICBC and the RCMP to see that maybe there are improvements in other areas that might need to be made if certain intersections become more dangerous over time or what it may be. So this slide here, we have our proposed pedestrian network. Just to note, this is just the city center view. In the appendix of the plan, we have an overall view, but most of the network is condensed within the city center. So this was just the most important area to highlight. So you'll see that where there are solid lines, that's the existing network, and then anything that's dashed is proposed. So you can see that again, like I said, the network is already there. There's a good foundation, and then just making those extra connections so that there's more going on the north side and then the south side of town to bring them a little bit more connected into the network. And the next slide is the proposed cycling network. So this one we were a little bit more limited just with space, like I said, on the roadways, but we still wanted to make sure that the entire town was connected. Both sides of the train tracks have options. And again, this one's just the city center. There are some more connections that go outside onto Loop Road and then down Nechako Avenue, I think. Yeah, okay. Next slide. So this slide is just going over the proposed facilities. So this first one is just a typical sidewalk with curb and gutter. Like I had mentioned, looking at upgrading all of the offset sidewalks into proper curb and gutter sidewalks where that's feasible. Next one we have is already also existing in the district is the shared bike and pedestrian lanes. Like I mentioned, these are really great for where the space is limited and maybe the streets aren't as busy with cycling and pedestrians. They're able to both share that lane and still have a dedicated space so the motor vehicle users know that they are not supposed to be in that space. And the next one is a specifically dedicated bicycle lane. There's two versions up there. One is just the typical, and then the one below has a little bit of a buffer wherever there is room. Providing a buffer just increases the safety and makes the cyclist feel a little bit more safe, that they have a little bit more room and they're not shoulder to shoulder with a vehicle driving down the street. Next are would be two new facilities to Vanderhoof. This one actually is already kind of implemented along Recreation, where there's the concrete dividers and then there's kind of a pedestrian lane to walk. But this is something really great that Calgary uses too, and they're a winter city, so they are the same width as a sidewalk and just placed wherever there is room. They've used it for pilot projects to see if the sidewalk will work in this location or to put a sidewalk on a road until funding is available. So it's a great way to provide a sidewalk where maybe there isn't funding yet, but once we get it, we can maybe implement it. And these sidewalks are, like I said, the width of a regular sidewalk. So in the winter, you are able to clear them with the same kind of equipment that you would use to clear your existing concrete sidewalks. And then there's 2 images for signage. That is just to show the people driving on the road that that lane is there, so they just are aware and yeah, not running over those barriers. But that's why those vertical poles are there too. And the next one would be a share the road lane. So this one is again where there's not a lot of room, but cyclists are able to use the road. And then just with the signage and the painted markings on the road, just gives the motor vehicle user awareness, like, hey, there are probably going to be some cyclists along here. Be careful, share the road, be respectful. This kind of go hand in hand with the education. Not a lot of people know how to use these kind of share the road kind of lanes, and get a little bit dangerous maybe trying to pass people. So and then Ashley's going to go over priority project.
Yeah, so like I had mentioned at the beginning, oops, thank you. Like we said, we didn't really prioritize in the actual plan itself, but we were curious to see how residents would prioritize some pedestrian network and cycling network upgrades. And no surprise, the first top 2 were along Highway 16. So from Pine Street to Riley Ave, we had shown sidewalk improvements, which could include wheelchair letdowns, relocation of existing infrastructure above or below. Like Megan said, the signage for the education piece, line painting, or even eventually, hopefully, the installation of a new concrete sidewalk where possible. The second priority that residents seem to want to prioritize was the First Street, Highway 16, a new sideway crosswalk or a new concrete sidewalk from Riley Avenue to 4th Street. And then the third was the pedestrian controlled signal that was recommended at Pine Street and Highway 16 intersection. That was a big one that had come through the first round of consultation and just through conversations with like staff, residents as well. So we were anticipating to see that one for sure. And then thanks, Tanner. And then for the cycling networks, the top 3 that residents had indicated, the first was 4th Street, share the road. So just going back to what Megan had just shown about the line painting, but then also having that signage. So in the winter, when those lines are covered, there's signage up at intervals along 4th Street to indicate that there's a sidewalk and you're also now sharing the road with a cyclist. The second was the Pine Street share the road from 4th Street to 1st Ave. And then the second was the Silversmith Ave, Stewart Street West share the road from 1st Street, Highway 16 to Lampett Avenue. So like I said, not prioritized in the plan, but just to give you kind of an idea, because we were very curious and we thought you would be as well. Thanks, Tanner. Oh, yeah, you're good. Sorry.
So this table is in the plan, just unit costs. Got to get to the realistic side of things, and things are going to cost money. So just based on projects that we've had recently relating to all of these items. So it's split up linear facilities and then your intersection treatment and the amenities and wayfinding. Gives the district an idea of costs when you're going into applying for grant funding or budgeting, that kind of thing. Anything to add?
No, I think the unit cost is pretty straightforward, like Megan said, just to give a realistic vision of what things would cost before we go into the implementation matrix, so that when you see that line item of the actual big budget number, you can relate back to where that number came from based on the types of facilities that were recommended. Thanks, Tanner. So we just wanted to provide a quick snapshot of the implementation matrix, and we did it for cycling, pedestrian network as well. So we started off with labeling the street, the facility type, and then the length in meters, which relates back to that unit cost, just so it gives you an idea of how long the infrastructure is related to the unit cost that was there, which we incorporated into the implementation matrix. And then responsibility. So this was just the responsibility of either whose infrastructure it is, whether it's the district, MOTI, a collaboration of both, and potentially who would be able to get funding sources for the infrastructure improvements, because the district has opportunity, but MOTI also has opportunity through different avenues to get funding as well. So if there's an opportunity to collaborate, we wanted to identify that. And then we prioritized the recommendations as well. So the short, medium, and long term. The short term is quick wins that could potentially happen within the next 5 years. And then the long term is 10 plus years into the future. And then for the budget, the big numbers here, we wanted to put a large contingency on it, which is consistent with active transportation plans that have been done across the province, and also a percentage added with for engineering design, detailed design, because this project was a very high level, long range plan. And we did do our internal, very high level detailed design on some of this, but it wasn't the detailed design level needed for certain funding avenues. So the contingency is large, mainly because we don't know when some of these projects may be implemented. So if it's in the far future, the unit costs go up every year. Depending on what the economy is like, they might go down, they might not, but we wanted to ensure that if these are kind of driven based on funding, that the contingency was there so that you had adequate enough amount of funding and be able to construct the infrastructure without being under and then having to go into district's capital budget planning and things like that. So that's why the contingency is pretty high. Okay, Tanner, we're good for the next. Great. So for the grants and funding, we had quite a comprehensive list here, so I don't want to go through all of it. I'll be quick. So for local funding, we thought it was important. We talked about using a lot of funding opportunities outside of what the district has, but just looking into general revenues, and when you look into capital budgeting, seeing what type of funds can be allocated internally for certain specific infrastructure improvements. Not ideal, but we just wanted to put this in here to be realistic and throw that out. And then the next one was Northern Development Initiative Trust has actually quite a few infrastructure grant programs and community places program. And even for downtown, they have like a downtown rehabilitation program that active transportation could be utilized through. We put those in, and then we also put links to all of the funding avenues for future consideration. So it would be easy and convenient for the district to just go onto the plan, digital copy, click the link, and see if an infrastructure project may fall under that funding. And then the next one was provincial level. So again, we know the province, federal, and provincial has the typical active transportation plan or funding that comes through if municipalities do an active transportation plan. But there's quite a few. UBCM does their Community Works Fund. There might be more funding down the road through UBCM or other avenues provincially once the active transportation plans all start coming to finalization throughout the province, which a lot of them are starting to. So just to keep an eye out for that type of additional funding. And then ICBC also does some funding as well. And then quickly, just to go over the federal, because I know we've taken up quite a time. Just to look at the National Active Transportation Grant funding, FCM, so Federal Federation of Canadian Municipalities, does a lot of funding avenues as well for active transportation, as does Infrastructure Canada. Next slide, Tanner. Okay, thank you so much for your time that we've taken a lot above, but we are open to any questions or comments. And then if we aren't able to get through all of them, we're happy to correspond via email or phone after this as well.
Awesome, thank you. Questions? Councilor Lozay.
Hi, Megan and Ashley, thank you very much. I'm so excited to see this finally. I just had a question because I think a group in our community that sometimes through lack of any other form of transportation has to use active transportation, and that would be the high school students. And I'm just wondering if you talked to the high school students at all and when you were doing this.
Yeah, we did. So,
Okay.
yeah, sorry, it was a long time ago in November that we presented, but we did, we were able to do, so consultation with, the youth. I think it was, I'm not sure, Counselor Young, I think it was just through a select group of students at the high school, kind of the leaders.
Two days of leadership group.
Yep.
And then it was also.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so we actually recognizing that when we did the open house, that youth group is a group that's usually missing and doesn't come out that often, even through the surveys. So we actually asked the same questions at the for the youth consultation that we did during the open house, just to compare and see what the responses would be.
Yeah.
And then took those into consideration when we were doing our planning. And that's actually where the education piece came from, through working with high school, and adding an additional sidewalk along the high school route came through the consultation as well, because technical knowledge will tell you that, and Tanner can agree to this, hopefully, that you want your sidewalks on one side, on the south facing side, but on hands-on knowledge will tell you that there's students that just won't use the sidewalk on that one side, and it's really dangerous. So that's great. Perfect for us to know.
Yep.
Not standard to have sidewalks on two sides, but if it's needed and it's gonna be safe, then
Yeah.
we'll recommend it for sure.
Okay, no, that's great. Thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor Vandola.
Thanks, you guys. That was really great. One question, just wanted to make sure this linked into the, our kind of our revitalization plan that we had along Highway 16. And I see you kind of, you earmarked that in the long term for 10 years plus, but I was under the impression, working with the revitalization committee, that'd be a lot shorter time frame than that.
Yeah, so, are you okay if I?
Yeah,
Okay,
nice.
sorry, Megan, I'm just taking over. I'm so sorry. Yeah, so we did do that as the long term, just because that our understanding is that revitalization along Highway 16 is still, the document's still happening. It hasn't been submitted yet.
We were hoping you would get that to us soon.
Oh, yeah, okay, so, yeah, we'll have to talk to the person that's involved in that. So we just wanted to be, and just because the implementation matrix indicates that it's super long-term, if there's detailed design that accompanies, that indicates that it could be short-term, then absolutely it can end up being short-term, but yeah. And we'll make sure we talk to the person that's doing that when we get back to the office.
Any other questions? I have one, on the proposed cycling network. There's a painted bike lane indicated on Stewart Street. Page 10. I'm just wondering how that would that take the place of parking? Would that be in between traffic and parking?
So on that one, we took a look at aerial imaging and did some measurements, and we actually, in that blue chunk there, we are able to fit the parking, biking lane, and then the two driving lanes.
So the bike lane would be in between driving and
And
parking.
parking, yeah. Might involve some narrowing of the road lanes, but that's
Yeah.
nothing crazy
Okay.
or anything. Yeah, they might be already pretty wide, so you are able to narrow them a little bit.
Okay, thank you. Awesome. Well, if nobody else has any questions, thanks very much. It's a very thorough report.
Thank you so much for your time. Okay, have a great evening, everyone. Thanks, Tanner.
Thank you, guys.
Awesome. So moving on to 6.1. We have a recommendation there. Somebody like to move it? Seconder? Perfect. All in favor? Carried. 6.2, public notice by law. We have a recommendation. Councillor Frankel, Councillor Vandola, all in favor? Carried. Awesome. 6.3 zoning amendment. We have a recommendation. Seconder? Councillor Martins. All in favor? Carried. Mission statement. We have a recommendation.
I just thought it was a way it's designed. But, I'm not, so good, I just,
We're open to a motion.
I move that we adopt it as written.
Any further discussion?
Another question. I wasn't. That on the. I wasn't here at the last meeting, unfortunately, so I wasn't sure if this was discussed at all, but I was just wondering if we're gonna have an opportunity to then move forward into more around visioning and other pieces that connect with that. I know there was a conversation, but you know, often it happens all at the same time. It'd be nice to have something because this is, I know Councillor Van Doe would like it smaller. I think it's very efficient and safe, but I would like to know, have some more specific wordsmithing happening for our community in the vision statement. So hoping that happens at some point.
Yes. I think weren't we going to leave the vision statement as is, was my recollection. We can maybe bring that up.
I think Christina's recommendation was that the vision statement was good as it was, and it reflected the rest of the strategic priorities along with this mission statement. But we can change it.
Okay. On the mission statement, all in favor? Carried. Councillor items. Let's start with the Housing Committee meeting minutes. Councillor Lozay.
Okay, so I wasn't here for the meeting of March 15th, so I'll just briefly speak to the meeting we had in February. And that was our first meeting, and we went over our terms of reference, and we went over our report and pulled out just some of the items that we felt like we wanted to address in our final report from 2022. There were a few questions about whether or not we were getting out of our mandate for the committee with some of the things that we did pull out of the report. So specifically, I think we're advocate for a timelier process with BC Hydro, create a staff economic development function, and form an economic development corporation. So those three items, I'd like to go back to the committee, and I would like to dig into that a little bit deeper to understand, first of all, what exactly are we talking about, to define those a little bit more. And then once those are defined, really is this the mandate of the committee? And if it's not the mandate of the committee, then maybe how can we move those things forward, maybe outside of the committee in another, what would be the process, outside of the committee to do that? So it's really important, I think. I mean, housing is such a huge, huge challenge, I think, right now for our community, and it means so much to our community. But we do have a specific mandate, and we need to make sure we're functioning within that mandate. So that was the only thing I wanted to bring up. We did want to talk a little bit more. What came out of our February meeting was to connect with NDIT to understand how NDIT can maybe, we can take advantage of some of the programs that they're offering. And I am going to segue to Councillor Young because he was chairing that meeting when NDIT did indeed show up. So.
For tag teaming on those meetings, I missed the one before and you missed that one. So it's pretty helpful to have people involved. So I think the highlight, obviously, of the meeting was meeting with Joel Mackay and Felicia McGee from the NDIT. And they went over some examples. I felt that, I know Councillor Barnes was there as well. And they were really pertinent to us because there were some projects that were pretty exciting projects that happened here along Highway 16. And I'm not going to put down Prince George, but there are more in the magnitude that we're looking at. So it would be opportunities like in Smithers, Houston, was it one Houston? Yeah, and there's a couple others that were very similar in terms of things that we are looking at for our community. And so he talked about the Dollars for Doors initiative, $10,000 per door kind of thing was what they've been doing for a while through NDIT. But then there was also another piece that we looked at, another, as Joel stated, a very underutilized fund right now. I think they said they had $12 million in that fund and it's being underutilized. And they were really talking to us about, they have opportunities for funding, even for staffing, for ways that we could work alongside, if we had questions about certain projects. I think they went up to $500,000 for certain projects that we could be looking at. So I think I know there is an action item that's coming out of this, and that is that staff works closely with NDIT around those two funds and to find out how we can move forward and make some applications. And for us as a housing committee to really identify and then make a suggestion, not a suggestion, but bring a proposal to council saying this is where we should focus on this funding through NDIT. And I know, Councilor Martin, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it felt like that both individuals here really wanting to work with us on this project and offered numerous times that we have staff that could help you go through this and this process. So I felt it was a very positive meeting. There's some good things that came out of it because I think a lot of us went into the meeting think we had the one slim area that we're going to talk about. And then when he moved on to this other area and said, here's some opportunities, we felt, wow, this is some good news here. So Councilor Martins, any thoughts on that or?
Yeah, thanks, Councilor Young. I was at the meeting too, and there was a few people missing, as we know, there was a few people weren't there. And we talked about it too, and we felt very encouraged and it was kind of exciting with the opportunities that could be there because it related very much to our size of project. And so I think that'll be an exciting thing to talk about the next meeting. So that $500,000 fund you said that was accessible, or that Joel talked about there, that can be used for all kinds of things that maybe people didn't realize it could be used for. As far as engineering and planning, you could actually go to the bank with that and borrow money against that letter saying once the project's completed, you're going to receive that. So that could be a kind of a tipping point, I think, maybe in some people's plans and stuff. So very encouraged for sure.
Awesome. Thank you all. Councilor Martins, I was going to say, being as your mic's on, I'm going to turn it back on. Any other councilor items? Do we?
Yes, that's.
It should be coming on. It's with all of them today. It takes a few.
But that one over there is on as well as mine. Maybe that's why.
Oh, that's it. That's it.
There you go.
Oh, thank you.
I got it. Sorry.
I just want to say the process generally for action items on committee minutes is council has to vote on them or nothing happens to them. So I think I heard Councillor Losey say that she wanted to take one back to the committee first, but there's one from the March meeting and there's another one from the February meeting. If council wants something done with them, they don't get action until they're voted on.
So item 7.
Yeah, I would actually, both items there was item number 5, I believe, from the February meeting. And item number 7, there was several action items there. I would really like to take those back to the committee and just to define them a little bit more. I'm just not comfortable making a motion to go ahead with that right now.
So was there anything from those meeting minutes that you wanted to bring forward?
From the March 7th, I think there is.
Yeah, I
15th.
Item 5 would be that the Housing Committee recommend the council's direct staff to discuss the Northern Healthy Communities Fund with the Northern Development Initiatives Trust staff for possible multifamily housing projects. That was our action item.
And you didn't do that already?
Well, we did here, I thought, so. It's official now.
Okay. So voting on that one action item, all in favor?
Yeah.
Carried. Apologize, I just lost my agenda on here, so I'll have to load it up again. Yeah, I know. So that's the only action item from housing, or is there more?
Nope, that was it. No.
Okay,
No, we can take-
moving forward. Councillor Lozay, any councillor items?
I attended a library board meeting on March 22nd, and I just would list, if any of you are interested, their AGM is happening on April 18th at 5:30. So, and then they just presented tonight, and yeah, so budget talking big time at the last meeting. So, yeah.
Councillor Young, action items.
Just the one. Thanks.
Councillor Van Dola.
Yeah, so just to let everybody know that a bunch of us attended the Local Government Leadership Academy in Prince George from March 15th to 17th. Numerous speakers, full days, some excellent updates on, you know, the kind of roles and responsibilities of a counselor. But one of the things I found really interesting, one of the presentations was around tourism. And the amount of tourism dollars that BC generates is the $20.2 billion. There's 149,000 people currently employed in the province in the tourism sector. And there's 19,000 plus tourism businesses in British Columbia. So the takeaway was to, in any of our strategic planning, to make sure that we think about tourism in any of the planning we do. So that was my takeaway from the main session there, and learned a lot. Like I said, there was some excellent speakers.
Awesome. Councillor Bulmer.
Yeah, I was at that as well. I concur with Councillor Van Dola. It was incredible meetings. I thought maybe Thursday was a little bit long. They might be able to cut back on that next time around. I also attended the Vanderhoof Chamber of Commerce General Meeting on the 21st of March. There was about 11 people in attendance altogether. They seem to be in good financial shape right now. I have all those numbers if council ever wants them. They picked up some other members. They've lost the United Way. I don't understand the United Way's thinking in that, and they're going to go talk to the United Way about that. They're continuing with their chamber luncheon series. The next one will be, if anyone's interested, going to it is April 28th, and it'll be co-hosted by Rio Tinto. This coming Friday, Dr. Gregory Thomas from the BC Chamber is going to be at our local chamber office briefly around 4:30. I will go to that and meet him and talk to him a little bit about our Chamber of Commerce. So in the meantime, if anybody on council wants me to bring up anything or have any questions, let me know. I'll take them to him. You might be interested to know that Juliana has left now the chamber, and Taylor Ephraim is stepping in as the manager there. A late addition to the agenda that night was the Good Neighbors Committee. They received a grant of $241,000 over 2 years. It's going to be mainly for wages for a person, and they will have that person move in to share the chamber's offices with them. So then we adjourned.
Awesome. Councillor Martins.
Thanks. Nothing in addition to the housing committee we talked about. Thanks.
Councillor Frankel.
Yeah, want to follow up on the LGLA on the March 15th, 16th, 17th. Councillor Van Dola talks about tourism. It was interesting when you looked at GDP, tourism was $8.7 billion for GDP. Forestry and logging is plummeted all the way to 1.6 billion. And I thought that correlation was pretty interesting in the times that we face. So talking about that, I do want to say that UVCM and the province are hosting a local government only session on the Old Growth Strategic Review and the 14 recommendations coming out of that on April 13th. Make sure that we get registered. That just came out on Friday, so I can pass that to Willeen. And then there's the regional sessions, and I think Councillor Van Dola And I thought that we might try to hit Prince George and do the virtual one or something like that. So, yeah, and I haven't seen the registrations yet, so. We also had a meeting with our MP, Todd Doherty, and I just wanted to let everyone know, attending the Regional District of Bulkley and Chaco's Business Forum in Telqua tomorrow morning. So should be interesting.
Great. Yeah, I'll concur. LGLA was great. Yeah, a lot of learning there. No matter how long you're in this game, I think there's always lots to learn, and it's good to be there and take that learning in. NDIT, we did very well through NDIT this intake. Looking at how it's going forward, it's actually quite doubtful that there's going to be a third intake this year. 75% of the funds are committed to the first two intakes. So just reinforces we need to get projects in on intake one and go forward from there, right? So we make sure that we're there while the money's there, because that's how it tends to go, is it goes until the money's gone and then you're out of luck, right? Yeah, no, that was really great. Had a good meeting with Carrie Sakani today on the youth center, and I think we saw some eye to eye there. Took a trip with Chair Parker from the regional district and Ministry of Forest staff, looking at the Shovel Lake and Island Lake fires, the Fraser Lake Community Forest, our community forest. Very interesting. You get a very different perspective from the air and see just exactly where the forest is and what you're dealing with, right? So I encourage that anybody that gets a chance to get out there and actually see what's out there in the forest. It's a really good thing to do. And that is pretty much what I have to report now. I'm going to be gone the rest of the week, but we'll have all my contact stuff on, so feel free. And thanks again, Councillor Franco, for taking my place at the Regional District Business Forum. And if you and Councillor Van Dola do go in to the Prince George session, I would really be interested in joining you.
Yeah, I didn't mean to.
No. I'm just saying, make sure we keep the lines of communication open. Again, nobody at the Regional District, we haven't seen the invitation yet either, so everybody's waiting. Yeah. We did at the Regional District have an interesting chat with the Deputy Chief Forester. It was on old growth. We didn't get too much specific to our region. Of course, the Regional District is such a large area that what's true on the eastern end isn't necessarily true on the western end, right? So they were on for an hour and a half, but still probably could have got another hour and a half trying to get all the information that you want to get at. Awesome. That is it for my report too. Information items. We have the Public Works Building update. Zoe. I'll start with it's looking great.
Morning, everyone. Yes. It does look great, doesn't it look great? Yeah, so it's coming along really well. We've had, change orders. It's only been about $60,000 in change orders, and we've already spent $2.5 million to date, so it's not so bad. It's been going well. Acres came back. They came back about early mid-February, and things have been trucking along very quickly. Working on the roofing and siding now. And then, it'll be a little bit more time to finish the inside, but they are slated still to complete about end of June, except there's been a little bit of a hiccup with electrical equipment to commission and to energize the building. So nothing has been confirmed yet. It's really just a preemptive like this, just so you know, at this point, we're looking at options with the electrical engineers. Can we energize it from the existing building? Can we, borrow equipment? Is there something that can be done? So Acres is looking into that. So at this point, I don't think we need to be too worried. Otherwise, it is on track to be complete end of June.
Great. Councillor Franco.
So is that an Acres scenario, or is that a BC Hydro scenario?
It's actually Acres.
Oh, it
Yeah,
is.
so it is equipment that they procured. At this point, we are firm that it is Acres that needs to look after this, that it shouldn't be any extra cost to the
Okay,
district.
I just assumed when you said energize the building that hydro was not able to connect.
No, it's an actual, I think a transformer that they're,
Okay.
yeah,
Thank you.
can't get in time. COVID delays.
Any other questions?
Okay.
No, it's, yes. Again, it's an exciting project and really can't wait to see it fully functioning. Okay, February checklisting. Any questions on there? Seeing none, council priorities 2023 to 26 goes on every agenda. No correspondence, so I will declare us adjourned. Thank you, everybody.